All right, Chico Brown, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Came up here, man. You've been doing your thing for a long time. I know you do a lot of positive stuff for the community. Melvin Farmer was, telling me a little bit about you before we started, a little bit more about the stuff that might not be on the internet that people might not know about. I'd like to just kind of start, from growing up and, where you come from and what things were like for you. Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Compton in Corner Pocket Crips in Compton. So I grew up in Compton in the 60s, 70s, like that.
What was Compton like back then?
In the early beginning, it was, family-oriented families, It wasn't no gangs then because gangs came after, like, 69. So from 60, like, I got shot at 76, gang-related, when I was 12, so I can say I started kind of early.
And what was it like seeing the transition from Compton, from when you first moved there to where it ended up going?
For me, say from when I got shot, 76, all the 80s, it was like I thought this was normal. People get shot at every day. That's what happened in my neighborhood. We got shot at, some of us died, some of us get up and shoot back. So that was the normal life. I didn't even know people didn't get shot at. Me growing up, my best friend died in my arm like in 1980, so that was part of my life. I had no idea people had swimming pools and stuff in their yard.
So at 12 years old, you get shot.
Yeah.
Can you take me through what happened?
Standing in front of the house, was a bunch of us. Somebody did drive by, shot me and my brothers, like both of us. There was three of them. Both of my brothers got shot with me in 1976. So that was my first time getting hit with a bullet. I got hit in the leg and hit in the hand, but I experienced that early. So the whole gangbanging shit with me starts then, 1976.
Were you already gangbanging at that time?
Yeah, I was claiming the neighborhood, but not like full gangbanging, just because everybody from that hood, that's what you are. It started, and that's you from there. And, you ain't about getting jumped in the gang. You grew up over here, so that's where you from. If I'd have grew up on the other side, I'd have been from Fruitown. So I grew up on this side of the Stockwell. I'm from Corner Pocket.
And you get shot, was it serious? Did you go to the hospital?
Yeah, I went to the hospital. It was serious, but not life-threatening. I just got shot in the hand and shot in the leg. But I still got the marks and shit, but, it wasn't life-threatening. I was 12 years old, so.
That's a young age to get shot.
No, I was only in the 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade.
What was it like going to school, like, after you've been shot like that,
I mean, me going to school, because first I went to Centennial in, summer school in 9th grade, went to Centennial. That's when Centennial then was Crips and Pirus. Wasn't no, it was even, 50% Crips, 50% Pirus. Then when my friend got shot, when Norman, my best friend, got killed in 1980, they kicked all of us out. So we had to go to Compton High. So that's how I become all Piru school. But in 1979, in the 80s, it was Crips and Pirus go there. Evenly matched, like Front Hood, Carver Park, Corner Pocket. We all went to Centennial. We talk about the days in Compton too, when Putin was still coming up to Centennial. When I was in the 9th, 10th grade, Putin was coming up there every day.
Who was?
Putin.
Putin?
Yeah.
Okay. And for people who don't know who was Putin?
Putin is the founder of the Piru, but Putin used to come up there every day. Piru shit.
And did you see him all the time? Did you guys ever have any?
No, I was younger, but he was, I seen him come up there. One day I remember, we had an incident with Westside and Putin came up there. We were like, damn, this grown man coming up there. Putin had to be, if I'm 18, Putin had to be 27 or something like that. I was only then I was 15, because Norman died. I was only 15 years old. He got shot we was going to school, and he got killed on a bridge as we was crossing the bridge, going to school.
Oh, wow, okay. Can you take me through what happened that day?
We was, on this side is, it's it's Front Hood, so we had to cross the bridge to go to Centennial, like a little walkway bridge. But before we get there, we shooting nights, and then somebody rode on the bike and, they screamed out Piru and shit, whatever. And we said, cuz, and they started shooting. He took it to the head. And this was I was in the 10th, he was in 11th, so 1980. So we talking about being I was a pallbearer at 15.
Damn.
So, 1980, so you can, how many years that is? Like 42 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the shit, like, for me, like, I've been going through this shit all my life.
How do you think that affected you growing up? Seeing, you're shot at 12, you see your good friend get killed, right in front of you.
I just thought that was, like, growing up where we grew up, I thought that was just part of daily shit. I never knew that people don't get shot out every day. That happened every day. Like, somebody that, like, it's just become normal. It doesn't even, like, man, I think I've been a part of it over 30 times. It really don't affect me no more like it used to. Like, shit, okay. Like Norman, like, you used to watch cartoons, like you think of Norman getting up, but his brain was on the bridge, like. But it still didn't affect me because I really thought it was gonna be like, okay, he got shot, but he ain't gonna die. But they kept him alive because they wanted to donate the organs and shit for like a week.
Sheesh. So they kept him alive just for his organs? Wow.
Yeah, his brain dead. It was, but you 15 years old, you don't understand it then, but now you know why. Like we're just keeping them alive to donate the organs. That's like, it's 1980. People like talk about they gang bang, they from this hood, man. Come on, man. It's a lot of dudes my age, just, say they gang bang, but they really didn't gang bang. They wasn't. Now it's like fashionable to be a gang member. It wasn't fashionable then because we really wore blue rags and really wore red rags. You know what I'm saying? You can identify who's a Crip and who's a Piru. We ain't even talking about Bloods and kind of because it was just Piru. This is before they like start talking Bloods. It's just they Pirus.
What year did your hood form?
70, 69, 70. Right when the Crips came, Compton Crips. But my neighborhood came like right then, 70, 71. Like, so my big homies is 60-something years, damn near 70. I'm 57, they like 70.
Okay, so they're about 10 years older than you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm like the second, I had to be second or third generation. My big homie, like, like Michael Stone is, I don't know, Mike got to be damn near 65, right? 66.
Mike could be about 64.
64.
64, going on 65.
Yeah.
What was high school like back then? You had mentioned that the school you went to was Crips and Bloods.
Yeah, then I had to go to Compton. I went to Compton. It was all Crips. And like, we did shit. We ditched every day. But for me, I really wanted to like play ball and shit. So I did end up playing ball, play basketball. And then I got kicked out of Compton. So I ended up going to Paramount. I got kicked out for not going to school, like doing shit. But that was probably the best thing happened because if I wouldn't have got kicked out and go to Paramount, I probably would have been a full-fledged, like, still gang-banging type shit.
What do you think it was about the streets that kind of drew you into it?
I mean, because back then we was like just some young dudes, like, we all friends until the murder started happening. You know what's funny? Like, my mother just passed away, like 99, like 6 months ago. But I buried more friends than my mother, who was 99 years old, than she buried.
Damn.
Like that's the shocking thing of growing up in the hood, claiming this neighborhood when you buried more friends than your mother. And my mother just passed away at 99. And, my mother used to say that too, like cause your parents at that time, like they don't know, I just remember like when I was like say 16, my mother like, why's your name on the wall? Like, she goes, why's your name on the wall with OPH, Corner Pocket Crip? What the fuck is it? Like, what is a Crip? Like, this is before we talking about when it ain't like social media. We talking about the 70s, the 80s, when it wasn't like everybody know, like, this is what it is. So she'd see me and my brother name on there, like, And then when I got shot, the police was like, this is 76, like, your sons are gang members, when they taking us to the hospital at Martin Luther King, they, the police came in there, like, they know they're gang members, like, at 12, I think,
What did your mom think when you got involved in gangs?
Well, for me, the gang shit only lasts so long because I got straight into the drug shit. But I always from the neighborhood because once you're from the neighborhood, that's where you're from. So for me, it was like the gang shit because I started making so much money. It wasn't about the gang so much.
How old were you when you first got arrested?
I was probably 25 or something. All my shit was fair shit. Like I never got arrested for no like gang shit, and none of everything had to do with drugs. I think my first time I got arrested was in 1990 or 89.
Oh, that long? Okay, damn.
Yeah.
So you started selling drugs early?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like 18, 19.
How did you get into selling drugs and everything?
I guess like the beginning of the 90s, before the crack shit, I was selling cocaine before crack. Before the whole crack era, was like used to sell like 50s and 100s of powder. Before that, PCP shit. It was just part of my neighborhood. This is what we do. Like dudes like talk about this crack cocaine shit, but before it was even crack cocaine, we were selling powder cocaine.
And what was it like before the crack got introduced to everything?
I mean, like dudes in Compton, we always made money before that because it was PCP around. Compton is known for that, like having PCP. So if we selling PCP back then, but for me, I wasn't about the PCP. It was all about the cocaine. Like I think it was a way like it was glorified from Superfly, from fucking what's the movie Scarface and shit. Like so you seen it. So now they're introduced to the neighborhood. So this is what we do.
And at some point, crack comes into...
Crack came in like 94, 95, so...
You mean
after
80?
80,
84.
Yeah, 84, 85, so...
Okay.
We started selling crack, because it was, it was a cheaper way to... You made more money selling crack than... But for me, though, I was always selling kilos, like cocaine.
How did you see the community change from before and when you got to the...
Devastated the community, like... Our parents, all our parents in the neighborhood, everybody owned their home. So the generation after that, you can see, the kids losing the home because they done got stuck on crack. And, at that time, the battle ram, all that shit was in effect. Like, people making songs about this stuff. But still, even when they talking about crack, I'm like, what the fuck is crack? Because we never said crack in Compton. It was always rock cocaine. I'm looking at the news and I see crack. I'm like, this is a new kind of drug? I never knew this shit was, that was just the name the dudes from the East Coast called it. Because after they used to break a rock down and made them out of, they used to press crack down and make them out of rocks and sell them for $2 a piece. We never did that. If you didn't have $25 or $50, you're not getting it. We didn't sell crack. We sold rocks. So crack was a terminology that came from the East Coast later, way later. Like in 86, 87, and they came out with the crack law and all that shit. But it was it was always rocks and shit. It was just a piece of you start chipping the rock away and made crack. In New York, they were selling for $2 a piece. In California, we never did that.
At one point, you read Freeway Rick?
Yeah, man, Freeway, we always did business, but we just really started doing business like in 93.
Oh, okay, she didn't meet him till way later.
No, we knew each other. We
Okay.
never did business together. We was always partners. Like he was doing this thing in the West and from his neighborhood, and I was doing my thing. Like if I needed something, like he had it, I go get it. But I always had my own shit.
Let me ask you, so when you and Freeway Rick met, what changed y'all relationship from friends to where you went to where it got to be business?
So this is what happened. So when Rick came home, after Rick had went to jail, Rick came home, and so Rick had this building on Crenshaw that he wanted to make into a youth center. I had just beat my case. I went to prison in 91, and I ended up going to trial, and I won, and I came home on the same kind of cases, selling cocaine, like large amount of kilos to. But I ended up going to trial and I won. So Rick ended up getting out almost like a year after me. So he needed help like with this building, so I decided to give Rick some money to help him with the building that he was doing. And so from the building, we was building the Apollo West, like recreation stuff, Apollo Theater on the West Coast. And then that's when the dude Blandone called, like, he called him from prison. He was already in prison, And he called him and like, man, let's start back the business. And Rick was like, man, I just happened to be with him. And like, I don't have the money. Rick said he didn't have the money, but my partner Chico got the money. So that's how the whole conversation started.
So Blandon, for people that don't know, who was Blandon? Calling from prison. What do you mean? He calling from where?
He calling from the federal prison. Like, he was already arrested. Blandon got caught with 10,000 kilos. So, but they said if they let Blandon out and catch Rick, they would let him go free. And that's exactly what happened. But we don't know all this information until afterwards. Mm-hmm. So he was in he was in San Diego, MCC, waiting to get sentenced. But they were so pissed off at Rick from the last case that, like, if you can get him, so it was a setup from all the way. Mm-hmm. And so we bid into the setup. Like, I ended up purchasing 100 keys from him.
Mm-hmm. So in actuality, I think we had a conversation, and you was telling me that y'all folks had purchased 1,000 keys, I believe.
100.
100 in San Diego at 10 a key back then.
Yeah.
At 10 a key, and you basically fronted Freeway the money and put your chips in to help Freeway make this.
Yeah, I gave him the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I ended up going down there with him. We was getting, but the dude Blandon was just.
Can you take me through the day? Paint the picture for me.
So the day goes like this. So we had went down there a few times before the deal even go down. I was skeptical because I was like, so where's, because I was wondering, like, where he been? But Rick, like, Chiggy like my family. So I met him a few times. Like, it took him like 4 or 5 times for me to convince me to go down there and do the deal. So Blandon called, said they was crossing the border. Can we get down there? Was traffic, so we were supposed to get there, say, like at 11 or 12. So we don't get there till like 5. It's kind of dark there, so they don't want to do the deal because they said it's dark and, like, they thought we had guns. But that was their reason. That was just bullshit because they wanted to, make sure it was daylight. So the next morning they called us early, like 7 in the morning. Said they was ready, but they was setting everything up. So as they set it up, we went to the Denny's restaurant. So me and Blandon showed up with the undercover dude who was supposed to be, Mexican connection. And he was like, well, y'all ready? And I'm like, nah, where the birds? This is what I said. Man, where the shit at? Like, nah, it's around the corner. And so we talking, and I'm like, and the funny thing, because I see everything moving. I see the cars and shit, like, I'm like looking around. And I'm like, Rick, let me holler at you. So I called Rick, like, man, some of this shit ain't right, man. Why the fuck, like, it's supposed to be like cash and carry. Like, I'm giving them the money. They got it. What if these motherfuckers jack it? Because I'm thinking, like, it's a jack move. We right by the border. They gonna go straight. They gonna take this money and go across the border. But Rick, like, we talking, and Rick convinced me, like, Chick, no, I ain't down. This is my family. This is my people. So I'm like, fuck it. But I still didn't give them the money. I said, I ain't giving y'all no money until I see this shit, right? So we left Denny's and went around the corner to this mall. But the mall was already set up, it's 7 in the morning, but his car is all in the parking lot. So I had the dude Mike go look this in the car to see was they there. He like, so when they said that, I ended up giving them the money. They threw the keys to me, like the car keys. So I took the keys and I like, all right, cool. And so I gave him like, cause me and Rick was in separate cars. So we had a driver, 2 to the driver. So when he tried to start the car, the shit didn't start, like the cutoff switch. Did you see helicopters and shit coming out there? I'm like, oh shit, this is a setup. But I didn't know who was setting me up, like, so by this time I'm about to drive through the mall, and the beams on my head. Rick take off in the car and go down the freeway. Rick take off. They got me surrounded, so I'm like, fuck it. So I just stopped. And I see the dude Blandon giving the DEA 5-5 and shit. I'm like, oh, this shit over with. This shit a cold setup. Like, so Blandon, become an informant, so he set us up. But they were more mad at Rick for testifying against the police on the Freeway task force shit. So that's how all this shit come apart. But we still don't know that we was, all this time, that we was being funded by the government. So we don't know this shit till like months later when Gary Webb come to he wrote us a letter. He said,
You're in jail at this time, right?
Yeah, we're in jail. So, we like, Yeah, man. Like, Rick already on the assumption because he just got out that he gonna get a life sentence. And there wasn't no deal in that case. Like, but when dude came up with this information, saying like, man, we got action. We've been getting supply because then he brought the paperwork to us. We reading this shit. His name's redacted, like Oliver North and people.
Tell us a little bit about Gary Webb. I think he was a journalist because I think y'all might have been in jail. And I used to be on shows, this Melbourne Farmer, and I was on shows with Gary. So ironically, I remember he was breaking stories about Oliver North, the Contra Nostras. Could you tell us a little bit about Gary's role?
Gary is a reporter from San Jose Mercury News. Gary get this story from a lady named Cora Boca. Cora was actually dating Manessa, one of the dudes in IK. But he was supposed to be going to trial up north. But he wouldn't go to court because they kept saying the dude Oscar Danilo Blandon wouldn't come testify. So she was like, he's not gonna come testify against you. You know, he's been working for the CIA. And then Gary started wrote Rick and tell him about this stuff. Like, man, he's not y'all gonna beat this case because he's not gonna come testify. But the day we went to, you know how you got a pre-trial hearing shit like shit, he showed up, and it was like a game changer. But once he showed up, we started investigating, and that's when Gary came with the package. This dude has been selling drugs for the government to finance the war in Nicaragua. Like, what? What the fuck? So now we get our paperwork from Gary. All this shit is right there. Like, he's selling drugs all this time for the conscience to supply the finance the war in Nicaragua. The war that our United States government was funding. So it was like, what the fuck? So by this time we thinking, the judge gotta hear this. So our lawyers brought it to court, but they didn't want to hear nothing. They said we made the story up. Like, they didn't want to hear none of this shit. Like, this is ridiculous. When we was going to court, you could see all the, like you had to go 3 metal detectors to get into court, because now this shit is breaking. And Gary came out with the whole story about the government been supplying these dudes from, you know, Compton and Watts with the drugs forever, for years. And that's how the whole shit broke. And, you know, then Maxine Waters got a hold to the story. And she took it, she found out, she gave us some unredacted. So now we get to see whose name is on this paper. You know, it's all the way from the president to Oliver North, you know, names that you're like, what the fuck? So we've been working for the government all these years without knowing. So that's why, like, you know, you see shows like, let's say a show like Snowfall and shit. That story is really our life story. But they made it up, you know, like, the government supplied this. The government, this is what they did.
How much time were you facing?
Because I never went to my first case. I won. So they never offered us a deal. So I looked at my guidelines and shit. I'm like, shit, this is my first offense. You can't charge me. You only can charge me how much money I had. So I had like $300,000. So I already knew how much time. I would get like 16 years.
So you had $300,000 on you, but how much were you given?
I gave him $300,000, $360,000.
Okay.
For how many keys?
For 100. I was supposed to bring, like, see if I told them if y'all come all the way to LA, I'll give you all the money. But they were like, fine. You know, it was supposed to be $500,000, but they said it was $360. But so I went with that. That's how I ended up getting 10 years, because you only can charge me how much money I have. I'm not pleading guilty to this. I'm pleading guilty to the amount of money I have to buy this shit. And it's no way that, you know, I had to really fight for this shit with my lawyer, because there's no way Birds was $10,000, then it was $15,000. So you add how much I can pay for them, how much money I got.
And what was Freeway Rick facing?
Life, because it was Rick's third offense.
Up under the guidelines, the federal guidelines.
His shit was, my shit was like 26. You know how they do the level shit in there. Rick's shit was like 36. Like, if I had lost my first case, I didn't have no points. I never went, on the time I went to jail was the Fed, and I went to trial and won. So my guideline points was way different. When it started off, it was high, because they tried to charge me with the 100 kilos. But you can't charge me. This is conspiracy. You know, that was like entrapment anyway. Like, Rick almost won the whole case, though. But if the whole conscious shit would have came in, we would have won. So I
Rick,
pled guilty. I pled guilty the day of trial.
so Rick ended up getting found guilty and sentenced.
He got sent to
how much
life.
time was Freeway Rick sentenced to?
To life.
So Rick came and it's at home because of the appellate
Yeah, we
process
won
where
appeal.
he got a appeal. And what grounds was it reversed on? The information
He
that
got-
Gary
he-
Webb gave, or
No, not at all.
compounded circumstances?
Not at all. What happened? He only really had one strike because they charged him with two, with the Texas and the California. So really, it was just one. And then he got sentenced above the guidelines, which is he should have never got a life sentence. So it's the first time they broke it down to 22. Then the next time they broke it down to like 16. So he won both his appeal. And so that's why he ended up doing, like, I think Rick did 14 or 16 years from a life sentence.
It must have been pretty surprising to learn that what you guys were doing was like mixed in with the government and.
Yeah, it was crazy because, you know, like with Gary, because I had ended up, so I was in prison for I was in jail for like a year and a half. And I ended up getting bail when all this information came out, so they gave me a bail for like $1 million. So I came home for like 4 months. They let me out. So I came home, and that's when the whole CIA came to Wack saying that this didn't happen. But he was they don't know I'm in there. So I'm listening to this story, and I stood up and told him, like, you know, man, y'all lying. I'm Chico. I'm with Rick. And y'all up here telling the people that this never happened, but y'all just left my cell and said me and Rick going to prison for the rest of our life. So what is, you can catch this on YouTube. This shit is live. Me talking to the head of the CIA. Never happened in the history of nothing. The head of the CIA came to Wack to tell the people that this never happened.
Man, that's pretty wild, man. You know, I think you mentioned in a previous interview that, drugs were coming one way and guns were going back.
Because that's the Kerry Commission. Everybody watched the Kerry Commission. They were talking about the whole focus was on the gun, but they never focused on how was the guns going there. They was bringing the drugs here first, and then the empty plane was full of guns. That's financing the war and shit. But the whole thing was they were selling fucking cocaine to finance the war. But they said it like Oliver North, not Oliver North, but Kerry, who was Secretary of State. He mentioned it when they was having the hearing, because he knew all the time that our government was selling drugs. So he mentioned this shit, but nobody paid attention. It was like the guns and shit, and like when the Iran when that shit was going on, they was just talking about the weapons of mass destructions and all that, but it was about the cocaine that was coming in.
Speaking of mass destruction, there's been talk that quite a few people that were involved in this case have mysteriously come up deceased.
Yeah, everybody, Gary Webb dead. Everybody on that podcast with me, that was when I stood up in front of and talked about the head of the CIA, Deutsch. Dudes who stood up, every last one of them dead.
And not too long ago, Gary Webb, the journalist from San Jose, wasn't he?
She died.
Shot twice in the back, in the head, or shot twice.
Yeah, Gary.
Declared suicide.
Yeah, Gary was shot twice in the head. I just talked to Gary like 3 days before he got killed. My relationship with Gary was close. I'm the one who gave him all the discoveries for the book. Gary rode with me in the car all through South Central because he wanted to get a sense of identity where we grew up at. I told him about, a lot of people don't know that Rick financed that whole golf thing at the park in La Cienega. Rich gave the dude like $600,000. He built that shit. So I told Gary that, like, Serena and Venus, Rick used to practice with them girls. A lot of people don't even know that story. With his daddy and shit, like, we built that shit. So I was telling Gary that part, like, it's in the book. Like, Gary mentioned that in the book he wrote. So I was just showing him all that. But like Gary rode around with me in Compton and saw a murder with me. And he was like tripping. He was like, "What the police?" I said, "There's only one body. Police ain't coming for no one body." But Gary was right on track of what happened. Did they kill him? Of course they killed Gary. Like Chico, if something ever happened to me, I would never kill myself. That was his main thing telling me. That was like one of the main, every time I talked to him. Like, man, I'm never gonna kill myself. I just want you to know that.
You seem like you were doing your thing for a long time. What do you think was like? How much money were you making during all that?
Shit, man, I made a lot of money, but that, I don't know. Shit, man.
What do you think was like your biggest day?
And profit-wise, or you just talking about selling, like you selling 100? I'm selling probably 100 bird every other day. Like,
damn. So that's a couple 100,000?
a couple million.
Half a mil? 2 mil?
Profit-wise, like, yeah. That's, but then it wasn't nothing. Like, a lot of people say they had cocaine and birds and shit, but it's only a few of us had that shit like that.
What were you doing with all that money? Were you stashing any of it, or were
Yeah.
you just buying, crazy
I
stuff?
bought a lot. I was having like at one time I had like 20 cars and shit that don't make sense. Like houses and shit everywhere. But you don't know. Like you can't. I was in my 20s when this shit. Even when last time when we got busted, I was in my 20s when me and Rick got busted. We was in our 20s. So I think I went to prison like at 27 and 28. That's 30-something years ago, though. Because we got busted in 93, so yeah, that'd be like 30-something years ago.
So you were a little more flashy, because I remember when I interviewed Freeway Rick, he was like, he wasn't really flashy. He didn't,
Yeah,
do
Rick,
the jewelry
you
and
can
all
even,
that.
Rick drove around in a raggedy station wagon. Rick was not flashy at all. Like most people even know who Rick was. Yeah, I was more flashy. I got shopped at Bijan. I was wearing Versace before they even started talking about Versace. Bijan was my friend. I was going to Rodale when nobody was even going down there. Like, I was putting $40,000 on 2 suits and shit. So that's the kind of shit I was like, I like Bijan store. The only reason I started shopping at Bijan because it was like appointment only. So I wanted to go in there just because it said appointment only. So I went in there and I bought like say 3 suits and the shit came up to like $48,000. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I paid him all cash. Like, so me and Bijan became friends. I've been shopping at Bijan since fucking 89, 90, like way back in the day. Like I was wearing Versace before they even talk about it. I got pictures with glasses on in the 80s before they even start talking about that shit.
Damn. Okay. Yeah.
Bijan suits, like, one jacket was costing like $12,000.
Damn.
And I was like, that's what I was wearing. Like when I was a drug dealer, I wore suits every day.
You'd be walking around in just a G'd up
Yeah,
$10,000 suit or more.
the jacket,
15?
cashmere shit. I was wearing shit like that. Like I'll show you some pictures and shit. Like, damn. And I saw a picture of me the other day. It's on my phone, but just my lawyer and shit. Like, I got a Bijan jacket on. That shit probably cost $15,000.
What do you think was like the most craziest thing you bought during that time?
Shit, man, I don't know.
A house? Did you buy anything for a female?
Yeah, I bought a lot of cars and shit for females, all kind of shit. Like, but I wasn't like, I got big Cartier watches and all that stuff. But I wasn't like, I wore a lot of expensive clothes, but not jewelry. I wasn't on the jewelry tip. But I had pieces, but not like, I had watches that cost a lot of money that you couldn't tell because you didn't know what it was. Like a Cartier back then, like people wear Rolex, I was wearing a Cartier.
Okay.
So once you come up out of jail, how was your finances then from living such a extravagant life? Now you don't come up out of jail. What's your mode now? What's your grind now? What's your thoughts? What's your get down?
So when I first came out, when I came out in 2001, my whole thing was like, I really wanted to, after all this that happened to me and Rick about the government, so I wanted to come out and start telling kids not to get involved in this shit so what happened to us. So I ended up opening up youth centers. So I opened up a youth center in Compton, Watts, and South Central. At the same time, like before I even went to prison, I knew Penny Marshall from going. I had season tickets to the Laker game. So when I was missing all this time, I was in Santa Monica at a basketball game, and she like, so where you been? So, I'm like, dang, like not knowing that she was asking me where I've been because she haven't seen me at the game. So that's when I was like, I was in prison, so I was kept it real. And then, but I had these kids with me that I was my youth center kids, and like, so, oh, okay. But Penny didn't. Penny, we talking about Penny Marshall. Penny never asked any questions about it. But the kids, she was so fascinated that I had like 10 kids with me because I was driving the van. So she wanted to well, let's go to this. We went to some event, and she wanted me to bring the kids, and so that's how me and Penny became close because she wanted to help me with the kids. And that's when she introduced me to Mark Wahlberg. She said, you should talk to Mark because Mark, just like, Penny put Mark in his first movie. And so she was like, you should meet Mark. And it's like 2000. Mark really wasn't big like he is now. So like, I want you to meet Mark. And so we met Mark, and then Mark started coming to my youth center. And after that, he started financing, helping me, raise money. So that's how me and Mark came so close, because of Penny. She put him in his first movie, and she discovered Mark from a billboard, the Calvin Klein company.
Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
Melvin was telling me something about a hip hop summit.
Yeah, we like for me, it's like always trying to see how could we like not let these dudes who influence sell drugs and stuff. So educate them on what I've been through, and so we doing a lot of stuff through music, like because you watch these videos and like a lot of dudes in the hip hop think Crip walking is a fashionable thing. They adore that shit, but for a real dude who been behind that shit, like damn man, these dudes is Crip walking some shit we did after we did some violence to somebody else, so it don't make sense to me. Like, so trying to just educate them on what's going on. So we the hip hop summit is stuff we going all around the country, just using hip hop just as a forefront to get to the youngsters. But like even like me getting into the movie business, I wanted to get into the movie business because it's a message. All the movies I do send a message. Like it's not just about doing a comedy. For me, it's like it got to be something behind this movie.
And speaking of movies, you got one, I Am Gitmo, talking about political prisoners that you have in production right now. Could you tell us a little bit about that project and how did youth that you picked up, ex-gang members, and employed them and gave them a chance in life?
Yeah, I Am Gitmo is it's a very political movie. It's about our government, United States, taking prisoners from Afghanistan after 9/11. Everybody remember what happened, 9/11, the bomb and all that stuff. But what we did was we went, I'm saying the United States government, went and took like 800 and something prisoners from Afghanistan and said they was part of the Taliban. But most of like 90% of the people who was in prison never did shit. They wasn't but part of nothing. They was normal citizens. But we arrested them and put them in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. So these dudes never got to go to trial. They never got nothing. We tortured them for 20-something years. All of them, none of them never went to trial ever. So they've been in prison for 20-something years. I think it's 36 of them left. So I wanted to show the world like what really happened to them. For 15 to 20 years, we tortured these dudes, and they never could get an answer. Like, the answer like, are you part of it? Like, where's Saddam Hussein and shit like that? Where's Bin Laden? These people didn't know what they was talking about because they was regular citizens in their country. But we tortured them, like really tortured them. Like a lot of them died in prison. Some of them came home. The ones who came home never got convicted of no crime, never even got charged with a crime, but they was in prison for 15, 20 years. So this film, Guantanamo Bay, is like, it's about the prisoners who was a prisoner of war. Like the 9/11 happened, so we had to find somebody to put this on. But everybody that was in there, nobody never got charged. I think like, as being, people need to know this story. None of them never got charged. Like we got the stories, the story came from out of their mouth, what happened to them.
Right, if you're in Guantanamo Bay, I mean, they could pretty much just take you there if they just suspect you of terrorism or suspect you of being a part of any of that.
None of them never got charged. None of them never got convicted because they never got charged. It was, it was flyers. They was putting flyers in that area of Afghanistan. Like, if you turn this person in, we give you this amount of money. That shit happened. Like, people was getting turned in. Because it was flying like, we give you $5,000, $10,000 to turn this person in. Said he was part of the Taliban, and a lot of people was turning them in just to get their money. So that's what the film shows. Like, we going out there, we got these prisoners and taking them back and taking them to Cuba and putting them in Guantanamo Bay.
How'd you come across this? Where's your passion for this come from?
My partner, who's just Philippe, he wrote it. Like, it's a bunch of stories like we've done. Like, I did the film Vax about the vaccination 6 years ago, about the vaccination causing MMR causing, it's a direct link to autism. Like, we do a controversial film. Like, when it came out, it was like a whole bunch of like, we can't do that. You can't do that. We can't talk about the pharmaceutical business. But we did it anyway. Robert De Niro, first Robert De Niro, because we had it at the Tribeca Film Festival. And they're like, no, you can't, don't watch this film. It's just a whole bunch of bullshit. Come to find out, it was, all this stuff is true. Like, back in the days, if you remember, we took 3 shots, mumps, measles, and rebellion. Now, it's a cocktail that they put together, you only take 1. But these kids before 2 years old, they take this shit, and it's like all these chemicals and shit. If you just think about it, 30 years ago, have you ever heard of a kid having autism? Now it's like 1 in every 26 people. And they got a real effect on African Americans. So we didn't get this, like scientists from the CDC told us this, undercover whistleblower. So we did this film, this shit go global. So the films that I do, I try to make it like real true stories. Like I'm doing the film on my life, what really happened with me and Rick, how this shit happened. The true story, like people talk about this shit. You talk about the snowfall and this, that shit bullshit. I'm telling you, like, what really happened, how we got caught up and what was going on when we was going to prison.
Speaking of snowfall, it's pretty much kind of based on Freeway Rick's life and his story and everything, and the people around him. What do you think about the whole Snowfall TV show?
I never watched it. Like, Rick just started watching it this year, but he never watched it either. Like, we had we had lawyers and shit, like, wanted to sue John Singleton because nobody went to prison about this, like, but me and Rick. When we talk about the CIA, if you pull our name up, the CIA, the Contras and shit, it gonna come up. But it's a lot of people now saying it's their story, but how can it be your story? Like, the CIA, when they came to watch, they weren't talking about nobody but me and him. So everybody can say it's their story, but come on now.
I seen somewhere that Snowfall just recently reached out to Rick. Is that true?
No, they ain't reached out to him. Rick doing a podcast about this. Like, he watching it now because he, telling him what happened and how this went. But no, they ain't reached out to him.
Can you guys sue him? Did they base it enough on you guys to sue?
We could have sued, like, when it first started. We had, like, you got, like, a period, like, 2 years. People, like, if we did it within the 2 years. But after that, it was like, and I probably could have sued him because I'm like, man, shit, I ain't know nothing about it. But that's, like, almost impossible to say that I didn't know nothing about this shit.
Yeah, it's called a statute of limitation.
Yeah.
That need to be addressed. Where it's I think it's a 2-year statute.
It's 2 year statute when it came out.
And it's zero tolerance when it comes to that, as opposed to when the police want to file a complaint. They can do it at any time the rest of their life, particularly a murder. So it's a lot of disadvantages when you're a citizen and trying to complain against the government or whatsoever. You gotta.
And then they hit us with the Son of Sam law too, because when we were in prison, we couldn't talk about this or sell this story to nobody because it's a law called the Son of Sam. You can't profit off your own crime. So that's what happened when we were in prison. We couldn't even sell this story to nobody because you can't profit off your crime.
Right. I've heard about that. What do you do when you come home from prison?
Open up youth centers and shit. Like, that was my whole passion. Like, trying to, like, I opened up youth centers. I started a traveling basketball team. I got a bunch of dudes that's in the NBA right now that used to be on my program. And then after that, I really got into the movie business. Penny Marshall, Mark Wahlberg, that helped me get into the movie business. And Penny, for sure, like, Like she wrote everything down for me before she like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. So she asked me 17 years ago, she introduced me to Philippe. Philippe is the founder and the owner of this place. I partnered up with Philippe like 8 years ago. But that's how I ended up here. Because Penny Marshall they was doing a film about basketball. And they wanted these kids to follow around. These same kids that I followed around, like a lot of them in the NBA. So it was like, the story was called Phenom. And Penny was one of the executive producers of it. And I ended up becoming the producer of it. And that's how I'm here. So I really never liked the movie business because I thought it was just a hurry up and wait. It was too slow for me. I was used to making a lot of money. So when I come here, like, you gotta wait for a check. I wasn't used to that shit. So I really didn't like it for a long time. It took me 10 years to even get focused on this.
And you said you got some documentaries and everything coming out about your story and everything?
Yeah. Like the Compton Rising that I did is like, so Compton Rising is it's a show that I had sold to Netflix. It's about me putting Crips and Pirus together and rebuilding the city of Compton. So I was filming that, and then it went bad when some of the elected officials didn't like the mayor. The mayor was on my side. I had the current mayor right now too. She was on my side. So they was all with me. So I take this project. They said you have to get the clearance from the city. So I took it and I got denied. I raised all the money. I didn't ask the city for nothing. I was doing this project with, Penny Marshall, executive producer, with Mark Wahlberg and me. And so I filmed for this is right before COVID, so we filmed for 8 months. The show never came out because the city of Compton would not approve the shit. So Netflix, there's nothing we can do. I still have all the footage. I still have it at, Mark companies, but it may never come out. People may never see this, but we talking about Crips and Pirus in Compton. We talking about dudes who was killing each other. I went from the top, who started this shit, to the youngsters. So I started with 4. At the end of this shit, it was 2,000 Crips and Pirus. I met with them every Tuesday and Thursday. I started a program called Compton in Power. I was the president of Compton in Power. Crips and Pirus. For that year we did this 6 years ago, was not one murder, 2 murders in the whole city of Compton. So the shit worked. The shit was working. Today, I still like, Chick, man, when you gonna bring the program? When the city denied me, I got discouraged and I walked away from this shit. That's when I got serious with my movie shit. I'm gonna tell this story one day, what really happened. But the dudes, it's unbelievable when you got the whole city behind the city and the dudes that, when we talking about dudes crying, they don't get to see each other because he a Piru and he a Crip. But we brought everybody together. You can even look this shit up too on the internet. Because I gave a celebrity softball game in Compton. Crips and Pirus, niggas from every neighborhood, hugging and shit. Shit unheard of.
How long ago was this?
About 6 years ago. You can put the celebrity baseball game in it. Search it, you see Crips and Pirus, pictures it's hundreds of us, and Compton got it. The shit, after that happened, I'm done with this shit, because I feel like the city didn't back me, and I got all these, the movie I just done, I got Dave from Fruit Town, I got Crips and Pirus in my movie. Not only that, when I was teaching them construction, then I taught them how to build sets for the movie. So they actually, all the Crips and Pirus built my sets for the movie that I got coming out.
Oh, so you give a lot of jobs out too?
Yeah, I keep them. If I'm working, they working. I still go back to Compton and the same shit. If I'm building sets for the movies, they're building the sets. I'm not going out of the rim. And when you see the sets on the movie that I come out, I am Gitmo. We traveled all over California building sets in the desert, everywhere. But the dudes who built the sets are Crips and Piru.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. That's dope. I think you had another situation in Compton where you raised $500K.
Yeah.
To help the community out. What all happened with that?
That situation went bad. Like I'm saying, this would happen. The city of Compton promised these dudes how to start the program, jobs, but they didn't hire. They wouldn't give them jobs because they all had felons. So I like, fuck it, I'm gonna start a construction company. I started a construction company to hire the dudes that they wouldn't hire. So I hired 10 Crips and 10 Pirus. Like, nobody hired y'all, man, I gotta do this. So I ended up having getting jobs, like I was rebuilding houses and flipping them. I just wanted to put some money in their pocket so they wouldn't be, sell drugs or they wouldn't. So after that, Penny Marshall saw that. She said, take it to Mark Wahlberg. This is something everybody should see. So Mark said, Chico, if you want to do it, you ain't got to flip no houses. Let's rebuild the whole city of Compton. Let's build youth centers. Let's turn this building into a skate something. So I was like, fuck it. Like, we can do this. So now I'm not looking to rebuild houses. I'm looking to rebuild youth centers, recording studios. Like, you can talk that shit about. It never was a recording studio in Compton. Like when they did Straight Outta Compton, that shit was in Torrance. So I'm building a recording studio in Compton. All these dudes that doing the work is Crips and Blood, Crips and Piru.
Your project got rejected.
My project got rejected because I had to go in front of the city council and let them vote on it if they wanted this project. It didn't cost them nothing. I bought all the money. All they had to do was say, yeah. All I wanted to do was give whatever building you got, existing building, let me rehab that building without the cost. I'm paying for everything. And they denied me. So when they denied me, Netflix like, fuck it.
Okay, so this had to do with the TV show you were putting together for Netflix. Okay, it was kind of all together? Because from what I seen, it was like you had $500,000 and it was going just potholes and just kind of rebuild Compton or whatever.
I was building youth centers and shit.
Okay. And it got rejected just because of infighting?
Yep.
That's got to be frustrating.
That was terrible, man. Terrible. Like, it's terrible, man. It was like, damn, man. And the dudes, like, we inside the courtroom, like, and when they rejected, I was like, that's, for me, it was like, that was not about us. If you don't like me, I can understand. I sold drugs in Compton all over. I understand that. But don't deny me. I said, I told him, no, you can deny me, but don't deny the kids. This shit is for the kids. We built these youth centers for the kids. So I got denied. So the same buildings are trash and nothing going on. It's just all fucked up. The recording studio was almost done. So everything come apart.
Man, that's rough, man. How long ago was this? Wait, this was recent,
like
right?
4 years ago.
Oh, this was 4 years ago. Okay, they just put the news article on the internet.
No, every year it comes out. Like somebody just sent that to me. It's probably 3 years ago, right before COVID.
Oh, okay. At one point, you knew Master P.
Yeah, me and Master P been friends for years. Like, I just can't, like, when they was talking about P had no money. Like, P was one of my biggest supporters from day one, 20-something years. P been coming to Compton. We've been feeding the people for everything for the last 20-something years. But I never talked about who was supporting me. But he came to Compton. Compton, Watts, wherever my youth center was, P was coming. We never made a big deal out of it because this is what we do.
How'd you meet Master P?
I've been knowing P like over 20 years. Like when he came out, we've been friends for a long time. Just when I first came on, my case was so big. Everybody knew who I was before I even, So I think we met when I first came home. Then my nephew, DeMar DeRozan, is my nephew. So he played for his traveling team. DeMar played for Chicago now. So he used to play for P team, Master P team. So.
Okay, because Master P, he was, he played a lot of basketball and everything.
He played basketball and he ended up starting a program. We traveled. We did all kind of shit together. But P was always like, every Thanksgiving he bought all the food for turkeys and shit. It came from P, but I never told nobody else it came from. But so when Wack 100 was talking about, like, man, let me tell you what P have been doing for the last 20 years. If you don't know, funerals and all that stuff. P had paid for so many funerals from dudes from Compton that he gave me the money, like, Chico, just take care of it. Like, I meet P on the freeway. He'd give me some money to take care of this shit. Like, we never talk about that shit, but he did that shit. He still do it today. Like a kid just, like, one of our basketball players just got killed last year. P paid for the whole funeral. Like, it wasn't nobody's business how he got paid for. But he the one who gave me the money to pay for that shit. So when the article went, Wack 100 say, P ain't got no money. So I got footage of all this shit. So I showed all this shit. Like P, like this dude in Fruitown was happened to be was held the person up hostage. P left my he was leaving. I was Christmas during Christmas time. P go in there in Fruitown while this hostage shit was going on with the police and shit. So I had so much footage. I had P giving me money. I had P filming for the funeral. So when you said something like that, I got footage of all that shit. Like I was like, I got footage of all this shit. I'm not just talking about this shit. I can show y'all how P been supporting shit in Compton and all the dudes from Compton ain't support shit. And you say he's from Compton, but he been like since 2000.
Damn, that's crazy. Never knew none of that, man.
Yeah, man. Like I saw you some footage right when you're like, what the fuck? Like really, this is how P been doing this shit.
Well, man, is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, is there any stories or anything you want to share?
I mean, you know, for me, it's just like, how could we help the next dude coming up? If it's like, you know, I got another TV series I probably shoot inside of a prison, like me going in prison with one of my homeboys who, you know, went to prison on triple murder. But he started a program in prison. So I'm going back in that prison and show the dudes, like, no matter what you did in life, you can overcome that shit. Cause, you know, it looked bad for me and Rick at one time. Now we home doing being successful. You know, I'm this building probably 20,000 square feet. I do movies with everybody. Like Tiffany Haddish is in my next movie. Like me and Tiffany, like tight. Cause we like even worked together before she became Tiffany Haddish. So, you know, P and Jamie Foxx, whoever it is, I'ma call them. Like I can make the shit happen. So you don't have to just because I'm from Compton, I don't have to be from Compton. You know, step out. I'm always be from there. It's like, but you can step out and do whatever you want.
Well, man, that's what's up, man. I appreciate you sharing your story. You know, I love the positive things you're doing. You know, I think that's really dope, man. And you know,
there's a lot of people don't even know I'm here. I've been here for 17 years. Like this is like a, you know, it's a full-fledged studio. You come from here, I got podcast shit. I got studios after studio, editing rooms, everything. Like, I mean, I come in here to do the work. It ain't about nothing else, you know. Like, let's get it done. You got an idea, we can make a movie out this shit.
This is a nice studio.
Yeah, so.
This is real nice, man.
Appreciate it. Like, you know, for me, this is what it's about, man. We gotta save the kids now. So how do we do that? You gotta get them involved in shit. Can't be like us in the street running wild, thinking that you're not gonna get old. So at the end of the day, you know, we all gonna get old. Gotta just make shit happen.
I hear that. That's what's up, man. Well, Chico, man, I super appreciate you, man.
No, appreciate you guys, man.
Definitely,
make
man.
Make it happen.
I wish you the best.
All right, for sure.
Look with everything, man.
All right, appreciate it, man.
For sure.